In this tutorial, we'll create a 3D flipping card interaction in Framer complete with parallax and hover effects. Let's begin with the visuals you want to animate and set an interaction to. We have a card layout already set up and ready to go. You can see that this visual consists of 3 parts. The outline or the border layer, followed by a foreground layer that consists of a Lottie animation. And beneath these 2 layers, we have another background layer which is also a Lottie animation as well. Feel free to experiment with the combination of vectors and Lottie animations to make your visual even more interesting. As you can see, my card frame is nestled within another card, and this is because we need to convert this into a component. To do that, right-click on the outermost frame and click on Create Component. Set the card frame's overflow to hidden so that any content outside the frame stays invisible. Once that's done, it's time to add hover triggers. Create 2 frames that will act as triggers for the left and right sides of the card. These frames will control the animation based on the cursor's position in any of these regions. Right-click on these layers and add them to a stack. Set the gap value to 0 so that there is no space in between the layers. Give each layer a different color so that they are easily distinguishable. Then place the stack above the card in the primary variant. Position these triggers carefully, either resizing them manually or setting their width and height to fill so that they fit precisely. Reduce the opacity of the triggers so that the design underneath remains visible. To set up the interaction, let's proceed to add some variants. Select the primary variant and click the plus variant button to create a new variant. Name it left. This variant will determine how the animation behaves when the cursor moves to the left side of the screen. Create another variant for the right side. Primary variant will serve as the default state. Connect the left hover trigger of the primary variant to the left variant and set the interaction to mouse enter. Similarly, connect the right hover trigger of the primary variant to the right variant and set the interaction to mouse enter as well. Keep in mind that any changes made to the primary variant will also affect the other variants too. Select the card frame from the primary variant and navigate to the transform section. Click on the plus icon, choose rotation, and set it to 3D. Now click on the plus icon once again to add perspective. Next, select the frame from the left variant and adjust the rotation and perspective values until you achieve the desired effect. Now repeat this process for the right variant. Adjust the rotation and perspective values for both variants to create the illusion of the card tilting left when the cursor hovers to the left and tilting right when the cursor moves to the right. Preview the animation to test it out. Looks great! Let's say you want the card to return to its default state when the cursor leaves the area. To do this, select the left hover trigger of the primary variant, connect it to itself, and this time set the interaction to mouse leave. Repeat this for the right hover trigger. Finally, set the opacity of the left and right trigger frames to 0 so that they are invisible. Test the animation again. It looks perfect. If you want to add more depth, let's incorporate parallax effects. Go back to the primary variant and select the background. Increase the scale of the background a little bit. By making this change in the primary variant, the same scale will apply to all other variants. In the left variant, select the background and move it slightly to the left. Now the background remains visible even when shifted thanks to the increased size. Do the same for the right variant, but move it slightly to the right instead. And let's test it out. It looks fantastic! The parallax in the background adds a lot more depth to the interaction. You can also move the foreground in both variants to enhance the effect even further. And that's it! You've created a 3D flipping card interaction in Framer. Feel free to experiment with different rotations, animations, and designs to make it your own.